Hello, in this video I wanted to give you a quick walkthrough of how you might convert something like a traditional MLA style essay into something more like a blog article, a magazine article, something that you would publish in a different place where you don't need double spacing for your professors to add comments or corrections, and where you wouldn't have a works cited page or a header or things like that. So just a couple of quick ways that we can do this. Obviously, we're going to get rid of our headers because we don't need them, especially for online writing. For a magazine, you might end up deciding that you wanted to insert the page number at the bottom. And so you might decide that you would put that center, bottom of page, etc. And so then that would show up for you. You would want to get rid of the general header information, but of course keep your name and the date. And then of course you'll want to move your title into your headline position above that. After we do, of course, we're going to want to make our headline look a little more enticing, catch the eye some. And also I tend to like putting those into some sort of a sans serif font. So let's go with something like, say, Helvetica. There's an entire documentary about the font Helvetica that's more interesting than you would think. I like to go with left alignment on most things because people might be reading this on a tablet or on a phone, and as they move the size of things, certain formatting issues would cause it to move in odd places. So I just suggest popping it over there on the left, making it a little bit bigger. Let's see, nope, that's too big. Let's go down a little. For this case, I think that will work. And you might want to add some color since this is about love. Let's go with red. It's already there. Okay, great. Now, you won't want all of this to be double spaced in standard paragraph. So let's go ahead and select everything and see what it looks like if we single space instead. Now, I did use this font because I wanted you to see that sometimes when you single space, it's not particularly readable. And so it's going to be determined by a number of things, but one is your font. So you can go up and do a little bit of playing with your spacing. And if we make it even just 1.15, it's already a little bit more readable. Sometimes, as I mentioned up here, serif fonts can be easier to read on a screen. So you might, again, switch around and use one of the standards that some people find a little more readable. Okay. If you do that, then you can add spaces between your paragraphs for block paragraph formatting. And that adds important white space and makes this a little bit, again, it isn't as much of a wall of text, we'll put it that way. And when we have double spacing, we also, I should leave this selected, we don't usually use indents. And so I'm going to use the rulers up here to drag all of that right over so that it's all left aligned. Okay. So that's looking a bit better. Now you might find that if you were going to make this into a newspaper or magazine article that you would want to do something with columns, and you can do that either for a full text or just from a section. If you go into layout, that is going to be, pardon me, layout and columns. I definitely wouldn't go more than 2, especially if you're in this sort of portrait landscape, portrait mode. Now then, that's an option. And one thing you'll notice, some people often like to do the alignment within their columns to be what they call force justified, like this. And so that looks a little bit neater on the edges. Sometimes you get squirrely spacing with this, so you'll want to keep an eye out for that. And it's one of the reasons why I often do suggest going with a left alignment regardless. Okay, so the other thing that seems to be missing here are some visual elements. And so let's talk about putting in a picture or two. Here's one that the student who wrote this had used, and it's just sort of a little intro picture, nice color scheme. You get this idea of talking about love, stuff of that nature. And up here, it works okay to just put it right in line with the text. But a lot of times you might need to play with the picture a little bit more. So let's imagine that since we're over here, where they're talking about how people who live longer have, or people who are in relationships, yes, have longer lives, and it talks about how people are happier in those relationships and stuff like that after a long time. So let's insert another picture. And this one we'll pull from a file instead of just our desktop. And I'm going to insert one from our class here that I found earlier. There we go. Okay, and whoa, that's big. And whoa, it's in line with the text, so it takes up a lot of space. So the best way to start working on photographs is to change how you deal with the wrap text. And I usually set mine on tight, sometimes on square, but once you do that, it allows you to move the image more easily. You can resize things. And then since I put it on the wrap text, you'll notice that it is going to move around whatever is there. Okay, and so that tends to look nice. You might find that you want to add borders to your pictures, especially if part of it is lighter, you know, around the edges. So let's find a color that looks nice with, let's see, let's continue with our red. It matches her sweater. Okay. So basically, those are the kinds of things that you're going to need to do. The more you play around with Word, the more you see as far as all of the design options you have. I think a lot of people don't use most of the design tools that are available to us in Word or in other programs that we're using. So play around with that a bit. Obviously, content is the most important thing, and you finish, you know, figuring out what you need to say first, but then you turn to document design, and it makes it more aesthetically pleasing, and that's going to keep people reading longer. If you have any questions about document design or how to use certain tools to achieve the effects that you want, by all means, let me know, and we can work on that during conferences or office hours.